everyone, today I'll be coming at you with the Creatures of the Night book tag. Ooh, so scary. This tag was originally created by Kat from Katytastic, and so I'll make sure to leave a link to her video in the description box below. I wasn't officially tagged by anyone, but I thought, it's Halloween time, what better time to do this than now? So for this tag, I have a list of 10 supernatural creatures, and my mission is to find some of my favorite books featuring each of these creatures. And looking back, I actually found quite a few old favorites of mine. So let's dive right into this and see which books I found these creatures lurking in. So the first creature is vampire. For this, I went with a bit of an obvious choice, and although these vampires aren't the scariest, it's one of the first vampire series that I really fell in love with. I chose the Twilight series by Stephenie and Meyer. I don't think this book really needs much explanation. The Cullens, that's all you need to know. The second creature is werewolf. Now, I haven't read that many werewolf books, but for the sake of this tag, I chose Scarlet, the second book in the Lunar Chronicles series by Marissa and Meyer. And so the Lunar Chronicles are fairy tale retellings that take place in a futuristic world. In particular, Scarlet is a retelling of A Little Red Riding Hood. Now, although this book doesn't contain your traditional werewolves, I did find the author's take on the concept to be rather interesting. I also preferred Scarlet over Cinder. The third creature is zombies. Once again, I'm no huge zombie fanatic, but I did find a series that I can kind of stretch to fit into this category. For this, I chose the Cirque series by Darren and Shan. And so these books are about Darren and Shan, who visits the Cirque du Freak and then gets transformed into a vampire due to some circumstances. Now, I know you're probably thinking, hold on, Freddie. Vampires? I thought we were supposed to talk about zombies. So let me explain myself. I'm thinking in particular of a certain character who possesses zombie-esque characteristics. This would be Harkat Moulds, a little fellow who looks something like this, I would assume. And so Harkat Moulds in the books is described as a little person. But when you think about it, the little people are created by Mr. Tiny from the souls of the dead and the damned. And so they're dead, but they're alive. It's zombie enough for me. Moving right along, the fourth creature is Ghost. For this, I chose the Saga series, written by Brian K. Vaughan and illustrations by Fiona Staples. Saga tells the story of two soldiers from opposite sides of a galactic war who fall in love and have a child together. And so the whole universe is pretty much out to kill them. And in this series, we do get to meet these pretty awesome ghosts, in particular, this one in the middle here named Isabel. She's missing half her body, but that doesn't stop her from having an awesome personality, being a very likable character, and giving her input here and there. So this is a pretty cool series. Just a little disclaimer though, if you are interested to check it out. It is meant for more mature audiences. There is some violence, some swearing, drug use, and sexual themes. So just a little disclaimer. The fifth creature is Witch, Warlock, or Spellcaster. For this, I kind of went more with the magician illusionist side and chose The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And so this story is about Le Cirque des Rêves, or the Circus of Dreams, that appears and disappears mysteriously without warning. But behind the beautiful tents and all the attractions, there's also a competition going on between two illusionists, where there can only be one victor, which is the one survivor. I chose this book because, in my opinion, it's just so magical. The writing is a real pleasure to read, and the setting of the circus is just magical and mysterious, and also a little dark. So this is a fantastic book for anyone who loves kind of like fantasy novels. And the sixth creature is Fairy or Fae. For this, I went with another old favorite of mine, An Earthly Night by Janet McNaughton. This story takes place in 1862 Scotland and follows Jenny, a young woman of nobility, who one day rides through the forest and comes across the ruins of a castle. She then meets this mysterious young man who was rumored to be kidnapped by fairies and finds herself falling for him. So as you can imagine, the fairies are not too happy by her arrival, and they try to pull this mysterious man back into the world of the fairies and far away from mortals. I really enjoyed this book when I was younger, and if you're into fairies and just superstitious folklore, it's a nice book to check out. The seventh creature is Demon. For this, I chose The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. And so this book follows the narrator as he goes back to his hometown for a funeral and then reminisces about events that took place during his childhood. This book has concepts where there are different realms or worlds that coexist together, And in particular, the narrator remembers a time in his childhood where this demon sort of appeared and nearly destroyed his family. And once again, the writing in this book is just phenomenal. It's very captivating. Now, the 8th creature is angels. For this, I went with the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. The first book in particular is called The Golden Compass. I won't really summarize these books because there are just so many concepts and it's kind of hard to explain, but I will say this is probably one of my favorite trilogies of all time. And as you can imagine, we do get to see some angels in here, although if I remember correctly, we see more of them in the later books. The 9th creature is alien. For this, I went with The Host by Stephenie Meyer. And so this is a story where the Earth has been invaded by aliens who insert themselves into the human bodies in order to survive and experience life on Earth. The human host itself, their consciousness eventually fades away and disappears. However, we have one human named Melanie who refuses to disappear, and she's able to communicate with the alien in her body, who's also known as Wanderer or Wanda. So Wanda finds herself falling in love with some of the people she sees in Melanie's memories, and so with the guidance of Melanie, she decides to leave the city and try and see if there are other human survivors. This book was originally marketed when it came out as science fiction for people who don't like science fiction, and I have to say I agree. Once I read this, I was converted to the genre. It's a really great book. And the 10th and final creature is Superpowered Human. I chose the Inkheart series by Cornelia Funke for this category. Now this book doesn't have your typical world-saving awesome superpower, but some of the characters possess an ability that I personally think is pretty cool. Maggie and her father Mo, when they read aloud, their voices are so fluid and so beautiful that some of the characters or objects from the books they're reading come out into the real world, into the room where they're reading. The characters are also able to read themselves into the story of the book. So I know that this power in these books causes a lot of trouble, but I think that if perfected, it could be a pretty awesome ability to have, especially as a book reader. So that was it for my Creatures of the Night book tag. Once again, a big thank you goes out to Kat from Katytastic for creating this really fun tag. As always, thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope you all have a lovely day.